Hi, I hope that session went well and it was a moment to establish and look at some fun and lovely things that happen in your child's life. And what's happened now is that you've actually laid the groundwork for the positivity and the love and trust that is in your child's life. Or if you're doing this with a student, that is in the student's life. And this is really important because now you're ready to move on to and it's safe enough for them to move on to bringing in and exploring situations which are challenging or which are difficult, which either might be something that they relate to, that they've had, or it could be something that they've seen in someone close to them. And because of the work you've done previously, it's now in a way safe enough in order to do that because you've established that there is love and trust in their lives, in their relationships with people and in events that have taken place. And what we're going to do is we're going to work in a similar way that we did in session two. We've got an image which is a little bit more difficult, which I'm going to share with you in a moment. You can either use the image that I'm using, which is from um, the book that I've written, Ali and Raj, that Harriet Muller has illustrated, or you can use your own image. You may have an image that you think you prefer to use, which is more suited to your child. Um, and you'll share this image and you'll start off using those open-ended questions which you've got used to using now, which will be saying, what do you think has happened here? And what will usually happen is your child will be able to, they might be quite literal and say, um, I think somebody's sitting under the table, or I think somebody's looking sad. And you may say, why do you think that's happened? And it was really interesting because I was witnessing this between two young people the other day. They were under 7 and they were saying, I think that the boy's upset because he hasn't done his work. And this was obviously something that the other boy who was speaking worried about. And his friend said, oh, I think he's upset because his friends aren't talking to him. And he was through this relaying his fears, like, that of not having, of friendships not being there. And that was an open conversation which they were talking about. You might ask further questions. You might, really explore those feelings that they've got used to using with you now. And you might say, well, what kind of feelings are they? They may say sad or, low, or they might even use words like anxious. It's good to hear the vocabulary that they're used to hearing. If they find that difficult, it's okay. You can use the faces again, and you might cut out some faces with them and put them there because you're still establishing those ideas that those feelings exist, and you're separating them out from what the happy feelings felt like, and it's okay for those feelings to exist. Once you've had that chat with them and they've expressed their thoughts, you might say, well, what do you think you would do? What could you do if somebody was feeling upset or feeling sad? And what you're bringing them to actually is an action plan. You're saying, these are things that happen. He could be upset because he hasn't done his homework. He could be upset because his friends aren't talking to him. But what kind of things could you do? And this is where you might establish like a point of three. And you might go back to that original picture of the trust and the love and the relationships that are in their life. And you might say, well, the first thing you might do, number one, is you might tell mum and dad, you know, I'm always here to talk to you. That could be a first thing. And maybe, you might remind them that there are other people in life. And you might say, oh, well, the second thing you do is you might, you know, tell your brother, or you might talk to your granny or your cousin because they know that they've done that work with you, and that might be the second thing. And the third thing could be anything, it could be something that you agree together. For example, it might be, well, you could, if you're feeling really sad, you could draw a picture of it. And it could be like something that you've established with each other as to what you can do if things are difficult. Um, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share this picture with you. So So this is a picture here. This is a picture um, that I used, and you can see that it's quite different to the happy picture. And something's happened, and this is a picture to use, um, and do use it if it's useful. I think the other thing that's important here is what you're really showing them and what you're demonstrating to them through these activities is that difficult things happen. Like, we want to make our children resilient. We don't want to pretend that everything is completely happy all the time, but they're just a normal part of life. And the more we support them with enriching their vocabulary, separating it out so they can recognize that happy things happen, but also difficult things can happen, and that you've also then established an action plan, is that you're actually helping them with constructive ways to deal with difficult things, which would then be something that'd be useful for them ongoing in their life. Um, I hope that that's useful for you. I hope it's meaningful. I know that so many people have found that useful, and this is just one way to support your children, and it is ongoing. I mean, I think that I've done this with young kids. I've had to find different ways to do it with older kids, and we never stop. And we know even as adults, we're working out our own action plans. You know, what do we do when things are difficult? I wish you so much luck. And I think it's so brilliant that you're doing this work. And do reach out if you've got any questions.